Denver Metro region. My name is James Flatham. I am the co-founder of the group, and I am honored to pass this off to Sagapal. We've got some elected officials we'd like to acknowledge before we proceed any further this evening. So, yeah. Or in the candidates. We'll do the candidates.
Okay. Just wanted to acknowledge we have some candidates for RTD board that we have endorsed, and other candidates who we are in the process of looking through an endorsement process, including Jack, Coleman, John, anyone else? RTD board candidates I'm missing? Yeah, well, just stand up, wave. These folks have their petitions. If you live in their districts, please go find them and sign their petitions to get them on the ballot. And then we also have RTD leadership present. Angel Peña, thank you as usual for joining us. I really appreciate you being here. And we have some exciting guests, but I will let James intro them.
We shall. So we're going to be coming back to this, but we are honored to be hosted tonight by friends from far away, all the way on the other side of the Rockies, our friends at Via Rio Grande. We are so thrilled that all of you guys made the trip out and braved the stormy kind of spring that we've still got cooking here. But we will kind of dive into a couple of these things. First, we've got a couple really big pieces of news to cover and new project updates for the group. June, you'll be relieved I pushed your slides a couple back. So, you did get here. me of little faith, and forgive me for that. So, I do have an announcement for some of you who may be kind of new to the group. So, while I founded GDT, I have recently had to recuse myself of votes on all rail matters, because I have taken a new position. I have signed on with the Front Range Passenger Rail Districts for their comms and strategic initiatives as the group explores a potential ballot question in November. So as a consequence of that, my role changes a little bit, as does my focus. But I do get to update you on things that have happened. So one of the big things that happened is that RTD's board voted 14-1 last month to authorize 90% design funding for Front Range Passenger Rail Joint Service. Woo! Sorry?
Who was the one?
The one was Director Chandler was a no on that vote. So we are super thrilled. This was a huge priority for our advocacy group. This was something that before I accepted my role at the Front Range Passenger Rail District, the GDT leads voted unanimously that Front Range Passenger Rail is our #1 core strategic priority for this year. So this was huge, a huge step forward of partnership, of potential for RTD and the Front Range Passenger Rail District doing together what neither could do alone. Supporting 3 trains a day, the design process to get us to 3 trains a day, a concept without raising taxes, addressing the long-term, long promise that is yet to be delivered, making measurable progress on those promises. So a huge, just another round of applause for the board, for everyone at RTD staff, everyone who's done all the legwork to get us to a place where we are making progress on this. This is a hopeful sign of more to come. All right, so the next one, I get to turn this over to Sagapal.
Amazing. So talking about Burnham Yard, I think just setting some context, we know the Broncos decided to stay in Denver, which we obviously appreciate that because we don't want our stadiums to be out in the suburbs, and we know cities like Chicago are dealing with that right now. I'm just super grateful that we are not in that position. We also know that there is, there are requirements when it comes to building a new stadium. Some infrastructure requirements we don't really like the NFL has specific parking requirements if the stadium is to be a Super Bowl host. And some requirements that we really want and are advocating for, like great separation of the rail. And we will talk about that later. The current plan also incorporates FRPR, or COCO, as it is now fondly referred to. And that is super exciting, having an event station there, which means the Broncos aren't just the Denver Broncos, they're Colorado's Broncos. And this has a bit more context as to the grade crossings. Right now, we are hearing rumors that we have 2 new grade crossings as opposed to the 3 or 4 that were in earlier plans. And I believe those are at 10 and 8th, yeah, 10th and 8th are the two. 11th may not be a grade crossing. Okay. Yes.
Maybe.
Maybe.
We'll find.
But right now, that's the speculation that the city of Denver and other stakeholders have been able to talk the team and other stakeholders down to 2 grade crossings. But as Cody had mentioned earlier when we were chatting, 2 is still too many. And the main reason there is because with this being our light rail spine, we will have 4 trains in every 15-minute window going in each direction. So that's 8 trains going in each 15-minute block. So if you were to think about grade crossings and how many times the crossing arms have to go down, how many times like the trains have to blare their horns, it is not pleasant for the community. It's not great for RTD reliability, and there are many complicating factors. So we are going to continue to be screaming and hollering to ensure that there are no grade crossings. And yeah, as you can see, we want grade separation. All right.
All right, last fun news here. With the L-line. So currently, Dottie in the city of Denver are leading a study to figure out what they want to do about Welton, what they want to do about the L-line. Unfortunately, one of those options includes ripping out perfectly good rail, we spent all this time working on downtown. So we are obviously against that here at GDT. We understand the frustrations that are very present on Welton with the existing transit access, given the L line's creation off of the D line in 2018 was it, and the steep decrease in ridership we saw for that. So we understand that the current configuration is not terribly useful transit, but we definitely fear that ripping up rail, we're going to get worse transit, and also that the city's in a budget crisis, RTD's in a budget crisis. Why are we ripping up rail? Of all things to spend money on, this is insane. So nothing's set in stone. Now would be a great time to just contact your local city council member, contact Donnie, contact the mayor, everyone, and just voice your strong opinion against rail being removed, so that we do not lose rail in a city that should be expanding it. So there's a lot of talking points about what a pleasant pedestrian environment would look like on Welton, and there is this sort of antagonism against the idea of rail existing with that, even though I would argue a lot of the street parking is much more to blame for the pedestrian environment being what it is on Welton than the rail is. So yeah. And you can find our talking points with this QR code if you want to scan that. I'll leave that up for a second. But yeah, come and find any of the leads if you want to talk about this more after. We could definitely yap about it, and a drink wouldn't be bad when talking about this, given where everything's going.
Yeah. And, sorry, it seems like people still want the QR code. Yeah, but GDT's position on the Welton corridor is we believe that rail is the right mode, and there are different stakeholders across the urbanist as well as non-urbanist communities that have different opinions, but I think it's very important to be mindful of what the needs are of the local community and see how we can accomplish them. But we also have to be unequivocally clear that if we are to connect this corridor to the broader system, the only way we can do that is by connecting it with the same technology that exists in the rest of the system. So people are talking about adding a streetcar instead, or connecting it using buses. And while there are pros and cons with those approaches, that at the end of the day, if you want connectivity, and connectivity is the main goal, it is a lot harder to achieve if you don't have the rail infrastructure that can connect with the rest of Denver's light rail network. So I have the privilege, along with Joe, who many of you know, to sit on the Welton Next Steps Community Advisory Group. And this process is very much trying to figure out it's a City of Denver-led process to figure out what needs to happen with the rail. We are still very early along, and in the next month, we will have finalized the vision and goals for this project. Thankfully, I think everyone who responded in the survey, as well as everyone who is part of this next steps process, understands that transit, high quality transit is super important, but there's still a lot of pressure and pushback about the future of rail on Welton. And that is an area where if you are interested in, it is an active area of advocacy for our group, especially in connection with, if you think about Burnham Yards, the new football stadium, you can only connect that community to destinations and connect people from other parts of the city to Welton as a destination if there is rail there. But yeah, this is a bit of an overview of the process. We will start to get final alternatives about whether to keep rail or not in the fall. So we don't have a lot of time to make our voices heard yet. Because come this fall, Denver is going to send a position to RTD about whether or not to preserve rail in the corridor. So if you live in the area, if you care about light rail, talk to your city councilors and find other ways to get involved. And Chandler, you want to give a quick Colorado Boulevard update?
Sure. Yeah, so thank you to everyone for coming out 2 weeks ago now to CDOT's public open house at Colorado Boulevard for the BRT project. For those of you who aren't as tuned in, obviously for this project, they're reviewing 3 different options. One of them is mixed flow, which just isn't BRT. And so we did get a lot of people to come out, and that's been really helpful. As far as what we learned that, right, CDOT is kind of pushing for a mixed flow with some kind of hybrid model. And so haven't announced it. The decision date is still going to be in late June, so there's still time to push. But it's kind of like what the Federal Boulevard model is right now. So yeah, the time is really nigh if you want to push for real BRT here. We also learned, and thank you to Matri, I think, who pointed this out originally, and we were able to confirm it at the actual group, or at the public open house, but the no-build transit travel times were based on the current schedule and didn't actually account for future congestion or any like population growth, anything like that. And that's super problematic, especially when they are hinging so much of why like center running is bad on, travel times being so terrible if you're driving alone. So yeah, this is something we really want to push back at. Yes, Leo?
I mean, also, mixed flow, like the same thing?
Mixed flow, like mixed flow would have similar problems there. I think my understanding is it's 2 different models for like what they're keeping standard versus not. And so I don't know if it's a real one-to-one. Yes, Mitri.
So one option would be that there would be no bus lanes, just queue jump signal priority, and then the other option, there's side running bus lanes which people could use for right turns, but it's a bus lane, and then there's a hybrid center side alternative which is extremely unlikely.
Yeah, that's where we received the most pushback. Blah, 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 in the 10-year plan, some of these funds for this project was pushed back, so there might be a delay there. If you are interested in getting involved, if you haven't already, I would really like you to scan this. I'm also here tonight, so I'd love to share this with you. You can sign a petition, take a survey. If you're like frequent on Colorado Boulevard and know you'll frequent businesses, we have postcards that you can give to the businesses so they actually know how many people travel by bus. And then you can even volunteer in an event. So yeah, thank you again. You can find me after this.
And huge shout out to Matri for figuring out that the assumptions, it's so important, like the advocacy we do, on multiple occasions, we've been able to push the bar, and this was another example of that. So kudos.
Okay, you have to deal with me now. I have the microphone on my jacket, so I don't have to hold it. And if you're wondering if I got a big stack of papers, that'll come up soon. So, legislative session is over. Woo! The legislature adjourned CNADA on May 13th, and there was much rejoicing and a very long after party at Pub on Penn. So let's talk about transit-related bills that happen in the legislature. Senate Bill 150, the big transit reform modernizing RTD bill, did in fact pass with amendments which we will talk about. House Bill 1065, transit and housing investment zones, also passed. Now, some of these have slides, some of them don't, just for the sake of time. So for the ones that don't have slides, I'll just quickly explain them here. 1065 allows the creation of up to 6 new transit increment financing zones around the state. It would allow for up to $75 million in annual sales tax diversions to fund those TIF zones around new transit projects. Now, if any of that is jargon that you don't understand, find me afterwards. We'll talk about tax increment financing. It's a really cool financing method, and it's what built everything around here. Union Station was developed using tax increment financing. This is a version of that. Yes, Maitri?
I just have something that's unclear with the bill.
Yeah.
I couldn't exactly tell what the limits were on like what kinds of infrastructure could be funded through these zones.
There is a list of qualified expenditures within the bill that includes a lot of things. I can't remember all of them off the top of my head, but it's a pretty comprehensive list of just everything that would generally relate to creating a nice area around a new transit project.
Not build, like, for example, like building transit. You could use it for that.
I don't believe so. It is focused specifically around the areas around transit projects. So as an example of what that could look like is Lone Tree City Center. A lot of the infrastructure for that hasn't been built out, but they've got the station there. So under this bill, Lone Tree could apply to turn that into a transit investment zone, and then direct tax increment financing to build out a bunch of infrastructure and amenities, which will then, result in all this development and things, and that'll pay off the debt service loans. So yeah, not the transit itself, but all the stuff that complements transit usage around it. Okay. Next up is Senate Bill 172, has its own slide that's about the Front Range Passenger Rail District. This also passed. That's really important. Next up, House Bill 1001. This is the HOME Act. Now, since I mentioned this in previous meetings, I'm not going to go into it too in depth here. This effectively is another act that loosens zoning around transit stations. And in particular, this will allow RTD to bypass certain local zoning laws, which very, very cool. Next up is House Bill 1430. Also does not have a slide, and even if it was a slide, it would take 10 minutes to explain. Effectively, just to go super quick on what that is, this is House Bill 1430. I was reading it right there just so I made sure I understood what it does. This is a reaction to Initiative 175, which I also have here. This initiative, the Contractors Association is trying to put it on the ballot for this November. This is a constitutional amendment that, if passed, would effectively kill every single transit project in the state and would turn CDOT back from a department which is trying to not be the Department of Expanding Highways and turn them back into the Department of Expanding Highways, kill all the BRT projects, potentially hurt Front Range Passenger Rail and RTD, and it would not allow, what? And busting. This is literally written by the Contractors Association to be a handout to the Contractors Association while also gutting the state budget. This is really, really bad, in my opinion. 1430 was written.
The board agreed that it's bad.
175 sucks. 1430, what 1430 does is it does its best to mitigate the impacts of Initiative 175 through a bunch of different methods. But importantly, this is like a nuclear option bill, and there's a long list of trigger conditions where this only goes into effect if certain things happen. The big important one is that if Initiative 175 is not withdrawn by June 15th of this year, then a bunch of stuff in here goes into effect. If you want to know what's in 1430, find me afterwards. I'm not going to explain it right now. Next up, House Bill 1269, Transit Access, which we will talk about. Let's go through these. Let's start with the big one, modernizing RTD. So this passed. It is based substantially on the recommendations of the 2025 Accountability Committee report. If you want to know what that is, look it up, read it. It's a huge compromise bill between legislators, Accountability Committee members, and yeah, just we don't have to relitigate that. This is a massive compromise bill, so keep that in mind. It is almost entirely focused on the governance recommendations from the Accountability Committee report. First big change is that board director pay was raised to $36,000 per year from $12,000, which is what it currently is, which, very cool. We've been asking for that for a long time.
Still not a living wage, but oh my
It's
God,
better. Next up, the board structure has stayed 5-4. Now, it has not stayed the same 5-4 as it was when the bill was introduced. Let's get into that. There are 4 appointees. Ultimately, the governor appoints all 4, but one of them is completely non-discretionary, which is the ATU member. That is a member of the board directly chosen by ATU 1001, the largest union representing RTD employees, which was one of the amendment asks, one of the approved ones from GDT members. And that replaced one of the Dr. Cog appointees, which was another ask by GDT membership. 2 are still from the governor. Now, I will remind you that the 3 appointees, which the governor has more discretion over, have to fulfill expertise across 4 specific areas.
Can you explain 3 here? Because
yes.
look at these numbers, they're like, where's the 3rd?
Yes, so 2 from the governor, 1 from Dr. Cog. That Dr. Cog appointee, Dr. Cog, which is the Denver Regional Council of Governments, which is our massive regional planning agency, they essentially get to drop a short list of 3 candidates for this RTD board director position. They hand that short list to the governor, and then the governor, the governor can draw up his own list. But those 3 people that the governor appoints, which is the 2 more discretionary ones and the 1 from Dr. Cog, must collectively possess expertise in public finance, land use and planning. Please help me with the other 2. It's been a while since I re-reviewed this.
Transit operations, they wanted somebody who could have a transit or planning background, operating background, someone from a historically marginalized community as well.
Yeah, so those are the,
Objectively approved. I mean,
Yeah.
the marginalized community, I think, is like objectively provable. For the other ones, like, what is the criteria to prove that they have that like expertise?
well, yeah, so the governor appoints, but they have to go through Senate confirmation, which is, assumedly, this is how it's supposed to work. The Senate will make sure that they possess the necessary criteria because they'll all be up at the same time.
So it's at their discretion.
It's at the governor's discretion, but still subject to Senate approval. Next up, the big one, the disability community was massively in favor of this bill, in a big part because this bill includes, so in the Accountability Committee report, it just recommended that RTD conduct a paratransit study. In the actual bill, the state legislature is requiring RTD to do a study, and a very comprehensive study with recommendations on a lot of different things, and RTD must begin implementing it by December 31st, 2027. It is no longer optional like the recommendation from the Accountability Committee. It is mandatory. So that was beefed up from the initial version as well. So that's one of the other changes. And also, one of the important board changes is that this bill says that the General Counsel of RTD must report to the GM CEO. That is not optional. They must report, or they must report to the board, not the GM CEO. That's a massive change from what it currently is. Currently, the board has 1 employee, the GM CEO. Under this bill, they have at least 2, the GM CEO and the General Counsel of RTD. There's a lot of stuff in this bill. We've gone through it a lot. Are there any questions? Yes.
Do the recommendations need to start by, or be implemented by December?
Basically, they need to start implementing them, and the accountability measure is that they basically have to report it out to the General Assembly every so often.
Thank you.
Yeah.
One thing I'd like to say really fast is I just want to thank everyone from GDT who participated in the discussion about this. This was probably one of the most technical and difficult things that we disagree with internally, but I just think it speaks extremely highly of the caliber of the people who contributed to that conversation. So I just want to thank all of you guys for being very thoughtful, respectful, because this could have been ugly, and I feel like we pulled through and we threaded the needle with this as an organization. So thank you all.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, so you mentioned that this brings the board then down to a 9-member board.
Yes.
Is there any clarification on what I'm assuming no, but do we have any clarification on what those districts would look like?
So we don't have clarification on what the districts would look like, but we do have clarity on the redistricting process. So in 2028, it will be redistricted by OLS and LCS as the Office of Legislative Legal Services and Legislative Counsel staff. Those are the lawyers and the policy and budget analysts of the legislature, respectively. And then in 2030, drawing RTD districts is handed off to the Independent Legislative Redistricting Commission, which is responsible for drawing state legislative maps. For now, we may see that change shortly temporarily because Colorado may be entering the gerrymandering war nationwide. So but they will not get that stripped for the RTD board seats. They will still be in charge of those in 2030. Yeah, so I'm going to move on to our next slide. I see Saikapa also giving me the hurry up. House Bill 1269, I'm not going to go through this too much. This bill is stripped down a lot from what it was introduced as, but it still is substantively pretty good. First of all, it requires RTD to post a map at all their train stations, bus stations, and BRT stops. That's a first. RTD's never done that. And this means RTD has to make an actual map now. Woo! Isn't that wild? Okay, next up. This requires the posting of multilingual transit information. If 5% of your transit agency speaks a second language or speaks a different language other than English, there must be a QR code posted where you can scan it and then you can view all the transit information in your own language. However, if a transit agency has 20% of the population speaking a language other than English, the information must be substantially posted similarly in both languages across the system, which pretty good change.
Really high.
That is the ratio. That's about how many people speak Spanish in the Denver metro area. So at the very least for this area, completely RTD va a ser bilingüe en cada sistema en Denver. Felicitaciones. Sí, es necesario.
Vietnamese or Amharic with the requirement anywhere?
I don't know.
Okay.
With that, does this also apply to announcements? Because you have the posted information, but
Yeah.
Oh, that would actually be annoying. That's the one thing I would get.
Good. Good question. I'd need to reread the bill.
The answer is no, we wrote that out of there.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Jack. And next up, covered agencies must submit a very detailed report with a lot of data to the state legislature, including boarding by route, on-time performance, complaints, accessibility information, a lot of stuff. So I'm not going to go into all that here. I could not list it if I tried. There's too much in that report to list. Next up, Senate Bill 172, Front Range Passenger Rail District. This bill narrowed the Front Range Passenger Rail District, which was originally basically a very wide swath around the Front Range to capture every possible alignment for Front Range Passenger Rail. This bill narrows it just to the municipalities that would actually directly benefit from Front Range Passenger Rail service, which includes Starkville, Colorado, population 62, just south of Trinidad, which I just saw was in the bill, and I'd never heard of it before. I don't know how to get to Starkville. This also gives the FRPR district additional flexibility for future ballot propositions. In particular, it allows the splitting into sub-districts. So, North Service and South Service could be on different ballot measures, which is a good idea because you don't need to ask people south to just fund a service north, and they're like, well, I'm not getting a train, so I'll vote no. So this allows right-sizing the ballot question to the actual service area. Sub-district or phased ballot measures. And it also clarifies some local government participation options, such as station improvement areas. So local government, if FRPR is coming to town, can go to the ballot and say, hey, everyone, could you approve like this fee or this tax so we can improve this area around our new FRPR station? Right, that's also an option in the bill. Emma, question.
Given southern Colorado is considerably more conservative than northern, do you see this sub-districting as possibly backfiring? We have to build a second portion?
Ask Chris Nevitt. He's over there. Sorry.
Okay, so James Latham speaking. Basically what this does is I'll take a mic. What this does is this offers the district flexibility, right? The board, it's ultimately up to the board of directors to decide, the Front Range Passenger Rail District Board of Directors. Depending on the polling data that they have over the next couple of months, they're going to look at what the data looks like up and down in terms of, is there a meaningful split? Are there meaningful differences in interest in this project, right? This is going to be entirely at that time. This is a board decision. So it's not necessarily going to split the district into two pieces, but it does offer them the opportunity to potentially run two ballot measures concurrently, right? The North and the South, and if both of them pass, great. If only one of them passes, at least there's a project that's moving forward. But what this is designed to do is give the board the flexibility to make a decision at the future time. Is there anything you'd add to that? All right, perfect.
Okay, great. Questions on Senate Bill 172? No? No questions. Great. James, it's your job now.
For those of you who are regular members, this is the point where I remind you, if you would be so kind, if you enjoyed some pizza, please send me just a couple of bucks. You got a QR code, and Emma, you might need to duck. And my apologies. This comes from my bank account, but if you are a new person, if this is your first night tonight, please ignore everything I'm saying. You are our guests. The first one is on me. It is my pleasure to host all of you tonight. I'll leave this up for just another second, and if you can't get it, you can talk to me afterwards. Yeah, Christian, you came all the way from Utah. You don't. And you helped set up, too, sir. I mean, well, thank you. Welcome. Okay. Is everyone good? Oh, no, sorry. Andrew, all good? Okay, so now it is my pleasure to introduce Caitlin Arnold, who's joining us from RTD tonight. Caitlin's going to be giving us an update on the downtown reconstruction project, and we've got a summer of interesting stuff to come, so thanks for being here so much, and thanks for telling us about all your work.
Well, thank you guys. So as James said, I'm Caitlin Arnold. I'm a program controls analyst at RTD. I've been with the agency about 8.5 years. So I've worked as a utility engineer and as a construction engineer. So some of the greatest hits, greatest being a subjective word, I have probably been there inspecting or doing something on the project. So we're talking tonight about downtown rail. I'm just going to provide like a high-level update on downtown rail reconstruction, where we're at, where we're going this summer, and just kind of placing it within the context of it being one of the largest reinvestments in the rail infrastructure since the early 90s. Unless I drop my slide notes. There we go. So generally tonight, I'm just going to give an overview of the project, our 2026 status, the service delivery approach, and then our community outreach plan that you can expect to see over the next year. So, as you may know, the Downtown Rail Reconstruction Project involves full-depth reconstruction of some of the oldest tracks in RTD's system, including from the 7th and Colfax to 30th and Downing. So what we've already completed in this project we'll cover, and then the additional steps that we have coming. So when this work is done, it's going to be improving safety, reliability, access, and customer experience throughout the downtown area. So sorry if I'm in front of it for some of you guys. To give you a little bit of context, although these photos are in black and white, in 1994 when we built our system, we did have color photography. It does place a little bit of context though, just about how long ago that was. So we opened our first light rail line on October 7th in 1994. It was initially just a single route, the metro area connector, which was later than the D line. That 5.3 miles initially just ran from 30th and Downing to I-25 and Broadway. Right now in the system, we span over 60 miles, and much of the downtown track itself, though, is still that 1994 infrastructure, over 30 years old. So this reinvestment that we are making is required to strengthen that safety and the reliability of the system, especially in this high-use corridor. So, understanding where we're going this year, I do want to make sure that I'm covering some of the progress that we've already made to date, especially as a multi-year project. So what you see here is all of the phases of the downtown rail reconstruction laid out, whether completed or their projected completion. So in 2024, we completed the 5 major downtown intersections. So knowing that some of our guests here tonight are talking about at-grade crossings, this is especially relevant. This was some of the most technically challenging and disruptive work within the system. It did require full closures of all of those intersections. Construction on this portion finished 3 weeks ahead of schedule, and rail service was restored within 1 month. Now, because these intersections are rebuilt, this year with our downtown construction, you can look forward to no full street closures in the downtown loop. This is done. It's a big win for you guys. It's also a big win for the team, because dealing with those intersections and especially the utilities under those crossings is quite a nightmare. Then last year, you may remember that we did the Calumet Street crossing. So this specific area included 1,300 feet of track. It included 1 vehicle crossing and 2 pedestrian crossings. While we did that work, though, we also completed additional improvements in the Colfax Auraria Station, 20th and Welton Station, and then other locations of track within the downtown loop. Some of that was replacing old insulated joints, repairing other pieces of the rail that were not critical, but because we had it shut down, it was great to get that work done. So when we look at this next year of work, starting on June 7th, we're going to begin our reconstruction on the Colfax alignment. So this includes the area from 7th Street through that ADA accessible platform near 10th Street in the Colfax Auraria Station. This will also include full depth rail reconstruction. And then we will also be doing some rail reconstruction on the Cherry Creek Bridge. So for anyone looking, it's just in between North and South Spear. So that bridge piece as well is going to be rebuilt. Now when we look at the downtown loop mid-blocks, I think this is some of the most highly anticipated because it is in a lot of high traffic areas. So also beginning in June, we will begin our mid-block reconstruction. When we do this, as I said, there will be no full intersection closures. We're also going to be able to maintain at least 1 lane of through traffic at all times. That's for the vehicles, that's for the buses. What we can also look forward to is for pedestrians. We will have all of the sidewalk access and business access open at all times. Again, completing some of these earlier phases of work that were more disruptive has given us the opportunity to complete these mid-blocks at a point in time where the 16th Street has been reconstructed. We're able to make sure that people are able to have connectivity, mobility through this whole downtown area and enjoy all of the really wonderful improvements that are on the 16th Street. Then we're also going to be completing this one. Oops, I've gone back, sorry guys. This is also going to be completed Q1 of 2027. So track reconstruction is going to be completed slightly earlier than some of the station improvements that you can look to see as well. We have 5 stations in this section, 20th and Welton, and then our 4 stations in the downtown loop. We'll also be doing station improvements at the Colfax Auraria Station as well. So what you can look to next is our service delivery. So while we do this reconstruction, obviously moving everybody around is the main priority, making sure that people can still access where they want to go on our services. So the approach that we're using this year is really centered on customer needs, so predictable alternatives and minimize disruptions. So we are going to be maintaining reliable travel options. That is part of the C line reinstitution in here. We are also going to have the T line, which is our temporary line that's being added. This is going to be increasing some connectivity through that corridor, adding more capacity on that main line so that people who are needing to make those connections have additional alternatives. We'll also have increased frequency on the ART line, which is a personal favorite, and then the Route 43, which parallels our L line service. And then within the downtown loop, the 16th Street free ride is going to have increased frequency. We will still have our free metro ride. The 0 and the 16 will continue to provide connectivity up and down Colfax and then into the downtown center. So again, we're trying to balance the needs of the infrastructure needing to be restored with also the needs of the community. Sure.
Are you all, is RTD planning to test, track, analyze these changes while they're occurring for any potential permanent changes to the system?
Are you speaking more to the service of these alternative rail lines?
Like the T line and the reintroduction of the C line and some of the tweaks that you're proposing here. I'm hoping it would be great if, in my opinion, RTD was tracking, users, behavior, all the things related to the changes.
Right.
You have a baseline now
Yes.
of how things work today. Then track what happens with these changes, and then use that data to see if there are any modifications or improvements that might be realized. When I saw the T line, I was like, why temporary? Let's make that forever. But you need to measure it so that you know if that's a viable investment. So that would be my question. Or a suggestion.
No, I appreciate the suggestion. Very, very well taken. A lot of the services you'll maybe remember, one of the hits was our S line. That was the temporary holiday service that connected the L line up to the rest of our corridors after Calumet last year. So I know as we collect ridership data constantly, just as a function of business, all of that information and where we are getting, additional ridership in these temporary configurations is information that's being tracked and looked at. But as far as advocating for it, I would highly encourage anyone who likes any of these services, that advocacy to the board members that you have in your region is really helpful. That kind of feedback is all part of the service change process. And then any kind of permanent changes to services are obviously part of those quarterly, or not quarterly, triennial service plans. So.
Questions until the end of this.
Sorry, that was my bad. I called. All right, so yes, so DH and L lines temporarily suspended, C line reinstated for Mineral to Union, as we said, the T line, and then with all of our additional supplementary bus service. So this is a graphic that we have up on our website right now for the downtown loop. What this graphic is indicating is not necessarily exactly which route you're going to take, but if you would have typically used one of the light rail services to get downtown and it's not working for you in your current configuration, this is going to give you a good idea of just the density and kind of just how many different locations in this downtown loop area you can actually access from one or multiple bus services. We obviously will still have all of our rail lines connecting to you at Union Station, and then Civic Center over here is another one of the downtown hubs that a lot of our bus service goes to. But we have multiple different opportunities. We're really trying to focus the messaging this year and also the approach of the project on customer experience and maintaining that mobility and choice for customers in the region. So as far as the communication strategy that you're going to see from us this year, hopefully, as highly engaged transit users, any of you were able to see last year on the Calumet crossing that we had weekly construction updates. So those are going to be a part of it as well this year. Part of this is that our goals here are numerous, but transparency, emphasizing our investment in a resilient system for years to come, making sure that we are communicating to multiple audiences through multiple channels, making sure that it's not just that if you have a phone, but also if you just show up to our rail station, you have no idea what's happening, and you haven't looked at your phone, that you still have that information. I know part of that is going to be highly supplemented by our public information displays. Another project that I have history of working with that contractor to install those. So that interface has been updated. It will be showing additional information about services that are canceled, disrupted, things like that. Those will be a really great asset in this construction as well. So these are some of the tactics we'll be using. So as I mentioned, weekly construction status updates will be continuing. We have a lot of different venues that we're communicating to everyone, but our outreach is already underway. It's going to continue throughout the construction. Our pre-June activities have already begun here, but we'll continue with the social media messaging, signage, vehicle notices, customer care scripts. Right now on our website, we have a lot of different resources available, so you can take any of those. If you need those translated into another language, we will do that at any request. I know we have some of them we've translated into Vietnamese for the AHEC campus and a lot of their students. And then we also are going to have the impact team. So if any of you have been out to an event where there's high volume or a disruption, those are volunteers throughout the agency. I've had the pleasure of doing it several times, just helping customers navigate at the points where they're accessing the system and where they need assistance. So with that, I just want to, that's good. Thank you guys. Yeah.
So we have time for maybe 3 questions?
Sure.
3 questions?
So you said station improvements?
Yes.
Like, is that tactile striping, other, what specifically?
Yeah. So at a lot of our stations, the tactile warning strips are going to be replaced as part of this. We wouldn't want to leave them in place anyhow, even though some of them have been replaced over the years. Refreshing all of that streetscape in the area around the stations is going to include replacing those tactiles. We're also looking at the canopies at the stations and refreshing that lighting. The lighting is pretty old, like the canopies and the rest of the rail infrastructure. So that's part of the improvement. Some of it is also just part of being good stewards of the infrastructure. So if we have powder-coated paint that's peeling that needs to be refreshed and that needs to be restored, that'll be a piece of it. I know we also have some of those high blocks, those accessible ramps that we are still using with our high board floors. So those are going to be refreshed as well. Yeah.
Why is the T-source not parallel in the H which is suspended?
Let me go back to look at this.
Why doesn't it go to floor like H does?
So I don't want to speak out of turn. I am not a rail service planner, but my understanding of that is that the capacity on these lines, the timing of them, and the switches that we have, in order to go into certain areas and back out, we weren't going to be able to provide reliable service in all of the places that we would want. So what they focused on was looking at areas where we could enhance connectivity and frequency without having any kind of cascading delays through the system. They look at a lot of different alternatives, but that's my understanding. Yeah.
One more for your record. Considering last year during the reconstruction when RTD instead rerouted the D line to Union Station, what was the reasoning behind this year instead just bringing back the C line?
My understanding, again, not a service planner, so I don't want to speak out of turn, but my understanding is that because the C line historically has ran that route, some of the feedback that we received last year when we rerouted the D line did include feedback that people were familiar with the C line, or at least maybe legacy riders were more familiar with it. So bringing it back as the C line itself was a little bit more of a consistent travel pattern for people previously. And then I would imagine there's some amount of looking at what services we have that people maybe miss and seeing what their appetite is for services we look into the future.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much, Caitlin. Caitlin's here.
After the workday to spend time, educate us on everything going on. So again, huge shout out. Like, we really want RTD to be there and communicate, and this is a clear example of that. And we know that the folks at RTD, despite the constructive criticism we give, they care about this agency more than we do. And yeah, so again, very big kudos to Caitlin and Angel for joining us today.
And I have a personal thank you from a couple railroaders, Class 1 railroaders. They have to be anonymous, but they live down on the C line, and they are so grateful for having the C line back and making the connections to the airport so much easier for them. So kudos, we've gotten so much enthusiasm about the C line being back. People are so excited. So huge kudos to that. Thank you for everything you do. So now it is my honor, so I get to introduce our friends at the advocacy group Via Rio Grande. Via Rio Grande is a grassroots advocacy based in Salt Lake City. Are you guys a C4 or a C3 technically?
This one's a 3.
Okay, this one's the 3. Okay. So we've been navigating this issue ourselves, so we'll talk about that over drinks probably. But first of all, so excited to have all of you guys here. This is a project, the GDT of 2 years ago. We took a trip out to Salt Lake City, and we got to meet with a bunch of their team. They were kind enough to give us a tour of Salt Lake, of the historic Rio Grande Depot. He's going to tell you a lot more about that, but I get to introduce Christian Lenhart. Who are you the executive director of the Via Rio Grande, technically?
Via, yes.
The executive director of Via Rio Grande. Everyone, a warm Colorado welcome for our friend Christian Lenhart.
Should I speak for?
Wherever you're more comfortable. As long as
How long
it
do you want
takes.
this? Like 5, 10 minutes?
This is like, as far as projects outside of Colorado that we can nerd out about, it's this one. So feel free. You've traveled all the way here. You've come probably further than any speaker we've had. So.
Yeah.
Well.
Take as much time as you need. There is an activity afterwards, but more
Okay.
important to give you the time to speak.
No. Let's get to the activity. Anyway, who's familiar with the Rio Grande Plan? Who's heard of this before? Oh my goodness. All right, maybe the other way around. Who has not heard of the Rio Grande Plan is very confused? Well, 4 or 5 people. Well, good. Well, the Rio Grande Plan is based around this train station right here, the Rio Grande Depot. This was the counterpart to Union Station downtown. The Denver Rio Grande Railroad ran from Denver all the way to Salt Lake City. From there, you'd go another train in the Western Pacific to get to California. So this is our grand train station in Salt Lake City. It was a train station from 1910 all the way up until 1999, when a freeway project in Salt Lake City, ahead of the 2002 Winter Olympics, rerouted the train tracks to go away from the station. And so the train station's high and dry. Boo, I know, there's no trains left at the train station, which is very, very confusing because just 9 years later, the commuter train opened, the front runner commuter trail. And this is a fantastic piece of public transit. It says a commuter train that runs on its own track parallel to the freight trains that go along the Wasatch Front in Utah. The front runner is disproportionately busy for the size of Salt Lake City. It's routinely in the top 10-ish commuter rail systems. As far as ridership goes, we're about 14,000 riders per day, so not quite the A line, but definitely it fits in the middle somewhere here in Denver. But the trouble is with Salt Lake Central Station is that it goes through a part of town that really hasn't grown very much. It's part of the rail yards. There's these great big freeway viaducts going over the top of it, and it's not a central location. It's a terrible train station, we'll put it that way. It's just bad, and it's discouraging people from using public transit. And there's a few other problems that come up with that as well. So here's some pictures of the big viaducts, and UDOT is looking at ways to address those. And their big grand plan is to leave the tracks in place. One at a time, we'll solve these issues of railroad crossings. Because it's not just the big freeway viaducts that are blocking big urban developments. It's these railroad crossings here and over there that, these long freight trains go through the middle of the city and they block traffic, some dozens of minutes at a time. There's 25 round trips on the front runner, so that's 50 commuter trains per day zooming through downtown, often at the full speed, at least down here in the southern end, close to 80 miles per hour. And there's been fatalities every single year since we've pitched this, sometimes multiple, of people who get hit by the commuter trains. That decreases the reliability. It makes people angry at the trains. Why are they here? I'm not going to ride the trains. They're always hitting people. It's not a sustainable way to run a railroad. So the Rio Grande Plan proposes, all right, yeah, I'd love to talk more about the train station, but you have your own train station, so it's... yes, and Denver Union Station was one of the big models of how we got thinking about, what did Denver do? What could we do to be more like Denver? Because we had the train that goes up and down the mountains. We just don't have the train station. We have the station, just not connected. So how can we do that? And we were studying the way that the project in Denver developed, with the rail yards being land that became available for development to pay for the cost of the transit project. So here's something what it would look like here in Salt Lake City. We'd have the trains be below street level. We take them along the historic corridor of 500 West. That's the street that trains used to go on before they were rerouted. They would be lower than street level. If you can imagine something like Reno, Nevada, where the tracks are in the same spot, but just 35 feet lower than street level, so that where there used to be railroad crossings, there are bridges. Nobody ever has to get in the way of a freight train again. They don't have to block the path of the commuter of people in cars on the streets. And best of all, if we build this not where the tracks are now, but in the historic corridor, we get our train station back. And it looks pretty good too. These are renderings by Cameron Blakely, who helped me right from the very beginning to get some attention on the Rio Grande Plan. So with the tracks moved to a new spot, there are 75 acres of land that could be used for new urban developments, and we're very sure, very confident that this will pay for the entire cost of building the Rio Grande Plan, no matter how expensive it turns out to be. 75 acres is a lot of land, especially right near the downtown core. So here is a map of what a transit system downtown could look like. Instead of having this freight corridor right here, where the freight trains are now, they'd follow this purple line, go straight through the city, a nice, clean, straight shot, just like they used to do, and the public transit would make these nice loops to connect people from the central train station to the University of Utah, Main Street area, out to the airport, and this area, Midtown, that we're trying to call it. And that's essentially what we're up to. And these slides keep going. But this has been a grassroots effort that we're trying to get more people involved in doing, because public feedback has had a measurable impact. These are not the way that city projects usually come about, right? Usually the city hears some complaints, it identifies its own problems, and then it will hire a consultant to solve those problems for them. But this is something that the citizens started. The citizens said, this is a problem, and we can solve it with this specific solution, right? The only reason we're pitching using the Rio Grande Depot as a train station again is because it aligns with all these solutions align on this one thing, the Rio Grande Depot. Whether it's railroad crossings, whether it's a housing shortage because there's not enough space for new apartments downtown, or whether it's this division between the east and west because these freight trains just block access from neighborhoods on the west side to city services on the east side. All these things align into this one project. And that's been a blessing for us because it means that there are a lot of people with a lot of opinions that get involved, but it's also been a curse because it means that no one agency is responsible for solving these problems. And so our main course of actions over the last 5 years that we've been working on this is to send volunteers, whatever their level of passion and the direction, whatever what their fixation on the Rio Grande Plan is, to go to these public meetings, to build awareness of it and say this is a solution that is viable and get the attention of policymakers. There's currently a study that's ongoing. It received some money from the Federal Department of Transportation. It's called the We Connect, West-East Connection Study. And we think that's our best shot of getting Salt Lake City, the city government itself, to be supportive of the Rio Grande Plan. Because up till now, they've been interested. They've nodded their heads. They've been very conciliatory, but they haven't committed to anything. And we think that if we can get enough public feedback into this study, that this will be the moment that the dam breaks and the city will start supporting us, and then we'll hopefully have talked with enough legislators at the county and state and even federal level so that the dominoes can be all aligned so that we can get this going further. How's that for overview? Okay. Any questions? Sure.
So I should probably start, because we as GDT, we've got a reputation for being a little technical, a little bit focused on money and stuff like that. When you get asked by inquisitive people who aren't hostile, right? But when they ask you about what the returns are on the project, how much it's going to cost, the trenching, all of that stuff, how do you frame that conversation in a way where you keep them interested, you keep the conversation going, and you don't let the sticker shock kill you, but you also reinvigorate the economic benefits, the long-term picture of how it all comes together?
That's a fantastic question, and it's one that comes up fairly often. We were, the Salt Lake City did a study, or a feasibility study on the Rio Grande Plan at the very beginning. They hired engineering firm Kimley Horn to have a look at some of our claims. They talked with some consultants. They put together this grand plan of what if we did like a top shelf Rio Grande Plan and give all the stakeholders exactly what they want. And of course, the price tag came in a lot higher than anyone was wanting it to be. So we've had this price estimate of $3 to $5 billion hanging around our necks for the last couple of years. And that's obviously a lot of money. That would make it one of the most expensive projects in Utah state history. Not the most, we don't want to be that, but one of. There's several ways to go about this. The one is to say that the project still will pay for itself. We have those 75 acres of land that will become available. We hired Utah State University, what's the School of Business called? Huntsman? Yeah. Huntsman's School of Business. They looked at all the property values, how they would increase by removing the train tracks there and by building a Grand Central Station and urban walkability and all those wonderful things. That would create an income for the state of about $12 billion, which is almost 3 times what the plan would cost. And so you can say, For every time someone says $5 billion, we say, ha, $12 billion. And, my biggest number is bigger than yours. and that gets some people interested. Sure. Another way to be technical is to look at the alternatives and say, if we don't build the Rio Grande Plan, grade separation must happen in one way or another, because there's long freight trains going through the city, people are getting killed, that's just not sustainable infrastructure. If you're going to add up the cost of building each and every one of these as an underpass, because it's going to have to be an underpass for technical reasons we're not going to get into, that will end up costing at least $2, if not $3 billion all on its own. And that's enough to get a lot more people nodding their heads and saying, all right, fine, I guess we can go along with that. But it does take more time to explain a positive amount of money than it does to introduce a negative amount of money, right? You just have to be open and say, yeah, it is a lot of money. It's a big project, big cost, but big benefits. And if you can get a person thinking about the whole picture, then I think the project still sells itself.
That's what I was going to say. You're good.
Yes, Jonas.
With that 75 acres, what is the mechanism that potentially $12 billion would be raised? Are those owned by the city right now, or would they be sold to private developers? And what is imagined to be built there that would make it worth so much money?
The 75 acres is owned by several different groups. A lot of it is owned by the specific railroad companies. Some of it's owned by the transit agency. Some of it's owned by the city. And the assumption that we're going with is that if we build a new corridor for the city, through the city for the railroad, it would move its sort of a land swap sort of thing. The Burnham Yard development has been very instructional for us. And the reason we're so hopeful they would do that is because there has been railroad activity in that railroad yard for 120, 130 years. It's going to need a lot of cleanup, and I'm sure the railroad companies don't want to do that. If they can let someone else do that, all the better for them. Even talking around back channels, they would rather have someone else take care of that problem. As far as what would be built, the model that USU, Utah State University, came up with took a look at the type of or average typical developments going on in the areas immediately adjacent to the Rio Grande Plan and said, here's the number of apartments that would be there. Here's the number of businesses and commercial space and hotel space. And it's a linear extrapolation. They say, here's basically what it could be. So it could be a lot higher than $12 billion, depending on if the several sports stadiums get built the way they want them. Or it could be, lower, but it's still going to be more.
But is it just the price of the land would be $12 billion, they think?
It's
like the ongoing revenues?
Right, the ongoing revenues is a separate issue. That's several $100 million a year in terms of tax revenue and other employment opportunities. But that investment, $12 billion, counts the money that would be spent statewide in constructing the Rio Grande Plan, paying salaries for everyone who was building it, paying salaries for everyone who'd be employed there. It's, what's the accounting practice name that they gave it?
For the actual methodology for this?
Methodology, yes.
It's in-plan software.
In-plan software, okay. Yeah, I'm going to have to refer back to the actual report of it for the technicals on that one.
It's also publicly available. We can get it to you. You can look it up.
Yeah, I think our website QR code's on one of the last slides.
All right. How about you find that? Any last questions, or shall we go to the activity? Back there. Oh, sorry.
Be considered two questions, but they're related. In terms of transportation and infrastructure planning, what can Denver and Salt Lake City learn from each other?
What can we learn from each other? Well, sorry?
That's a preface for the activity.
We're ready for you.
Okay, well, I'll save that for the activity one. Yes, sir.
The Reno project, did they also have freight that they were putting into their timeline?
Yes, they did. Reno, Nevada is kind of a funny one to bring up.
Do you know how they handled the right-of-way, track ownership, operating rates, all the fun stuff with freight?
I don't know all the particulars, but I do know that, well, it was, the Reno project is a 2-mile-long trench. It goes through the city of Reno, Nevada. They were very worried the last time that Union Pacific merged with the railroad. This was the Southern Pacific merger in '96. They were very concerned that they would get bumped up from 8 big freight trains per day to 12 big freight trains per day. And that's funny because in Salt Lake City we have 30 big freight trains per day. And the funding mechanism was led primarily by the city. Union Pacific contributed a little bit, the state contributed some as well, along with the federal government, but it was mainly the city that came up with, I think it was half of the funding for that. As far as right-of-way, I believe it all reverted back to Union Pacific once the construction was finished, and that's their structure that they take care of now. We would be proposing either that for the Rio Grande Plan, or perhaps have someone, say the Utah Inland Port Authority, be the owner of the consolidated rail corridor through downtown. That's to be left to the experts on that sort of thing. Like the Alameda Corridor is another example. It's a 10-mile long trenched corridor in Southern California, where the ports of Long Beach and Los Angeles own that corridor jointly and give trackage rights to the freight trains. And they take care of the maintenance on that. And that's a good example of, say, public money going to public infrastructure for a consolidated corridor that can really simplify and optimize the rail infrastructure in urban areas.
One more question for June, and then we'll go into the activity.
Great. I'm realizing how deeply entrenched in Colorado law policy I am because I don't even know if Utah has home rule.
Pun intended also?
What?
Pun intended?
Oh.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different financing mechanisms to capture revenues. There's a lot of different ways to raise money, and I just need you all to be extremely thankful that you don't have Tabor.
Oh, we heard about it.
You don't have it, so be very thankful. But you've got a lot more sort of, I would say, funding mechanism authority, given that there's a lot of different agencies and governments involved. What thought has been given to what is the right way to either fund this project up front and then just reap the benefits in general sales tax and property tax growth, or to use those taxes to offset the construction to issue bonds against it, like a TIF financing mechanism, or to do something like a metro district, which issues bonds and then just pays it back with property taxes over time. I'm kind of curious, has there been thought given to what specific financing mechanism will be used to pay for this?
This is a question where you and I are going to have to talk about this later because I've had separate conversations with separate stakeholders. So we're going to have to keep all possible futures open at this point.
Yeah, just curious. I know in Utah there's always kind of this constant tension between the state legislature and the city of Salt Lake for political reasons. Is it too early to say whether like that could flare up with this? Like, has the state legislature or any like legislative committees expressed support for anything involving bringing transportation back to the Rio Grande Depot? Or I'm just curious.
This has been, we have worked very hard to make sure that doesn't flare up. Yes, being a blue city, a very little blue city in a very big red state is not an ideal situation. That's right, from Davis County, right?
That's right.
All right. We have, I'm going to be a little reckless here and don't let this really leave the room, but we've got a lot of the Democratic, yes. We've had several meetings with the Democratic caucus in the state legislature, and most of them are on board personally, but we're looking for someone outside of that group to be the leader and champion for the Rio Grande Plan. We've had our opportunities to run bills that are sponsored by Democrats, but we know that that is the first step to making this a political issue that will just get stomped on. And so we're looking for people who are Republican, have the R next to their name. That's a really big deal. But also someone who can be not from Salt Lake City and really promote the statewide benefits of this thing, which is really good for us because there's another city to the north of Salt Lake City. It's Ogden, Utah, and they also have a historic train station. Theirs is from 1926, 25, I believe. And they want to take their train station, which has the train tracks next to it, but for whatever reason, the commuter trains stop about a half mile to the north at this new transit center. They want to make sure that before the 2034 Olympics, the trains are stopping at the historic train station. And they're looking for funding for their thing, and they say that they thought that we'd be a good partner to work with. So we're letting a lot of our representatives from the Ogden area be our leaders on Capitol Hill for this. And it's a strange symmetry to be involved in. Ogden and Salt Lake City, once again, not cities that generally cooperate with each other on many things, but on this one issue about having a train that goes from one city to the other, and they both stop at the historic train stations, it's working out. So there we are.
All right. Well, big thank you to our friends. You will hear much more from them in the small group settings and the activity we have afterwards, but quick hiatus to talk about events and other fun programming.
Yeah, it's the best part of the meeting, events. Woo, okay, Board of Directors meeting, yep, we're having another one. That's gonna be Tuesday, May 28th at 5:30. Please get there at 5:15. We can coordinate public comment if we get enough people.
They pushed it back.
They pushed it to Wednesday?
It's Wednesday the 28th.
Ooh, okay, I will send out an update in Slack too, just to make sure no one goes on the wrong day then, but yeah. Wednesday's the 28th.
Thursday is the 28th.
Okay, Wednesday the 27th.
Okay, we will get the date and time right in Slack. You will be told. I would highly recommend that you comment on Welton if you have nothing else to comment on, or if you have time to add your comment, please. Let's not have rail be ripped up. That's my personal ask of you.
Do you know what's on the agenda, Jack or Matt?
Let's back it up.
The Front Range Passenger Rail District has a question.
Ooh.
At the RTE board meeting, the Front Range Passenger
How dare you not pay attention?
RTE a question. Would you be able to tell us a little bit about it for a second?
Yeah, sure. So, Front Range Passenger Rail and RTD are not just sort of like sister entities, but our fates are really tied together. So, as we go forward, RTD is going to want to come back to the voters again, to our friends in Utah. Be glad you don't have Tabor, but RTD will want to go to the voters to take RTD to the next level of transit. Front Range Passenger Rail, of course, we've got the funding for the starter service from Denver to Fort Collins, but we want to do much more. So this November is really the crunch moment, and we want to put our best foot forward to do all the organizing and outreach and all the communication that we can before we actually put something to the ballot. And so we are asking, we have shaken every tree and every bush. We've hassled the governor. We've hassled every agency we possibly can. We've gotten a lot of money for this purpose from a lot of different folks, but we still need more. And so we are asking RTD for a $5 million infusion to be paid back upon winning at the ballot, so that we can be as effective as possible between now and putting something on the ballot. And then when we win in November, we don't have to wait 6-9 months for the money to start coming in. We can hit the ground running and be doing all that planning and getting ahead. So that's a repayable request to RTD, and from our perspective, it's a small risk for an enormous payoff. If Front Range Passenger Rail succeeds in November, it makes RTD's life so much better, so much more successful for their own ballot measure, and then all the investments that we'll be making that connect to RTD. For me, it's kind of obvious, but the board has to chew on it, deliberate, and decide whether or not it's a worthy investment.
Cool. Alrighty, this is GDT's big trip of the year. Dates are set, places are set. Go ahead and book.
Tickets are purchased.
Correct. Yep. Yeah, not unless you want to take like what, 3 Amtraks?
2.
2?
Well, just to get there, getting back.
Right.
Yeah. You'll have done probably 6 or 8 by the time you go for a full.
But yeah, we'd love to have you join us. We're heading up the Pacific Northwest. So Portland, Seattle, Vancouver, stopping in each city, exploring local transit nerd things in each city, riding Amtrak in between. And yeah, I will be there. All the leads, well, most of the leads will be there.
We've got the agenda after this one. Right?
Yep.
Got one more slide after this.
Yep. So you'll need to take off at least a Friday from work. I'd recommend you take off the Thursday as well if you can and get into Portland that Thursday. If not the end of the world. But here's our itinerary. So we're going to be taking the Cascades mid-afternoon from Portland to Seattle. We'll have a full day in Seattle on Saturday, and then Sunday we will be taking the optional morning train into Vancouver. So a lot of people may not be able to make this last leg because they don't have a passport or they couldn't get the extra day off of work for Monday. But yeah, this will be a ton of fun.
We have found the least dumpy hostel.
Correct. We got some insider info on hostels.
We're going to make this trip as affordable as we possibly can. But yeah, basically, as I'm just saying, what we need everyone to do, right, is everyone needs to buy your own tickets, right, and get your own lodging. What we will do is we will coordinate all the day's events and stuff like that. We will make sure that the highlights of the local transit systems we get. And we have allies. We have friends in Seattle and friends in Portland that we're all going to get to visit. And we're going to hopefully talk about some of the huge opportunities that we have to learn from each other as well.
Yep. And the advice I've been given on Amtrak too is prices only really seem to go up as time goes on, so there's no reason to wait.
Especially
try to play a game.
Prices.
Yep. So buy your ticket tonight if you haven't already.
A flex ticket, that way if like you can't make it, you can just cancel it. There's no harm, no foul, so
Yep.
it's only like a couple dollars more.
Yep. Cool. Okay. June is soon, so we have a Pride Bar Crawl again. Correct. So we have the trip planned here. We're gonna hit up Charlie's, Tight End, Lady Justice, and Little Devils. We're gonna be riding the 15L, the 12, and the 0, so a bunch of nice buses. I'm sure there's people who haven't ridden the 12 before. So it should be a lot of fun.
All right. Well, if you can't make the Pacific Northwest trip, or just want to go on something a little bit closer, in the end of June, on June 27th, we'll take Mustang up to Vail. We'll take local transit to do Booth Falls. It's a 4-mile round-trip hike. Come back to Vail, have an early dinner, and then we get to, if anyone wants to, you can also head back early if you'd like. We can then go to a concert at the Gerald Ford Amphitheater. Bravo Vail has a classical concert series throughout the summer. We'll be able to see the whole entire thing, then make our way back to the Vail Transit Center and be back in Denver by 11 p.m. So just one day, one Saturday. I think we figured out that Pride is on the day after, so.
Yeah, it's the Sunday right after.
So yeah.
Oh, there's no.
The QR code is just for tickets to the concert. You don't need to pay in advance for Mustang or anything. Just get it the day of if you want to. But yeah, and I'll post this on the Slack, and
Same for the crawl.
yeah, and it'll also go on the newsletter. Which, speaking of which, did you?
Is it time?
Yeah, it's time next.
Is it my favorite time?
Yeah.
All right. Hi, everybody. Good to see you again. This is Gable, and I'm here to talk to you about Frequency, which is our newsletter that comes at a frequency of 1 email per month, which is not good for a bus, but it's great for an email. And last time it was really fun. We did like a little whistle of the Jeopardy theme, and I was wondering if we could do that again. Well, everyone has a chance to scan the QR code. So if you're not subscribed to Frequency, which I know none of you are, so you got to get out your phones. We will go ahead and do that. So on 3, ready? 1, 2, 3. I should. Beautiful. Thank you, everyone. All right.
Okay, the time has come for the activity. We don't often have such a packed agenda with two keynote speakers. Again, big shout out to the folks coming out from Utah. Big shout out to Caitlin from RTD. We pride ourselves in not being tardy, just like RTD service. But unfortunately, today we are going to be a bit late because I think it is really worth doing this activity with all the really smart people we have in the room. If you do need to step out, feel free to do so. I know meetings typically run until 8. There is still going to be a lot of time for drinks. Don't worry, the bars don't close that early. But yeah, before we get into the actual activity, just some very quick pointers about how do we actually advocate for transit. And I'm not going to talk through all of them. But essentially, there are a couple of key pointers as to how we can go and talk about transit. I'll keep this slide up after talking about the activity so that if y'all want to reference this and calibrate talking points, that would be helpful. But essentially, you have to know what your project is and calibrate that to the audience. And obviously, we love talking about the very technical details in this room, but that isn't everyone. As much as I would love to talk about trenching with everyone, but this is why people don't really come and talk to me on the street.
This is a trenchman.
But the activity for us today is trenching in Denver versus Salt Lake City. So really, the idea is we want to break into 3 groups based on different areas that might be a passion for you. So the 3 groups are like 3 different key stakeholders. So first group is political leaders and elected officials. The second group is your general public or local residents in the area. And the third group would be your technical agencies. So that's RTD, UTA, maybe your state DOT. People who will actually care about trenching, or like the technical aspects of trenching, like grades and all the other fun stuff, which I'm sure Christian has a lot of thoughts on. But yeah, the main question for this group activity is, how would you communicate the benefits of the Rio Grande Plan or of trenching the light rail at Burnham Yards to these different key groups? So we'll break into three like smaller groups, and based off of those big like stakeholders, and depending on your stakeholder, how will you communicate the benefits? And yeah, once I go back to the other page, like which of those 12 talking points would be the highest up in when it comes to the different stakeholders? Any questions about the activity? All right. Well, I know that we have different interests in the room, so I'm not going to break us out. Like I'm not going to dictate who goes where. Right.
So one question, is it an individual group project, or is it like one project coming out of each group?
So each group will talk about one specific thing.
Yeah, but do you want one card coming out of the group, or do you want many cards?
Yes. So the group will nominate one speaker, and they will share what they talked about.
Having like 4 to 6 cards is fine. You put it on the glass and you take a pretty picture of it.
Yeah.
So I think we'll just have a couple captains, maybe all cover the politics.
Yeah, unless you want to do technical. Either way.
I can do technical. Would you rather do politics?
Sure. Okay. So.
I can do politics.
Okay. Yeah. Politics. Okay. You'll do
General public.
General public. Okay, perfect. So let's basically split the room.
Technical over here.
Technical over here. General public in the middle, and then
politics in the corner.
Politics in the corner. Let's. Yeah, you'll feel free to break yourselves into whatever is in there. Love to get your thoughts. All right, you guys all have 10 minutes.
I feel like I talked so long, so
yes.
it should be pretty good.
And the slide is up about like talking points.
Okay.
All right, friends, feel free to
Try to remember. Yeah. I guess we can pull it. Yeah. One thing that just popped in my mind is I already have experience with the line even though it would be expensive, like people have Are you with the brand handwriting in this group? That's kind of why I was wondering. So for Rio Grande Plan, I think the first thing is there is a problem.
How much is it cost the taxpayer, like those kinds of things?
And you try to, in terms of meeting people where they're at, why it's needed, you probably, in your videos, for those of you who don't know, and what it seems like what I'm doing is try to find someone who's had experience here, how do you start training for like
Like cost or some issue. That's probably more. Besides the project,
and then obviously there is a very technical thing that eventually you have to do. Is there anything else you would add before you get into a technical stuff?
And like what's stopping them from running? What's their resistance?
Yeah, it could be resistance in the form of it's not going to move forward because it'll be changing the neighborhood itself. I think from what I gathered from some people I've talked to in the neighborhood, they probably are on board with the project, like they use like they bring it in and stuff like that. So I think there's probably appetite in the neighborhood for public for this.
So is the that appetite there is pressure with other
I think
how do you increase the time?
having it across tracks, this is pretty much city.
This will show up on don't worry about it. So in terms of trying to project part of it is probably have to establish where we're talking about, right? In this area. How do you describe the area?
Yeah, how do we build groundswell, not just in the local area, but across the city? not going to be much time to this out. So how do you really that's a that could be a living park, just like separated the neighborhood and more space to come into.
And then there's also, I feel like a lot of the parking is
and if they're all shared, that's yeah, I think the same thing we've been talking about, applying to the neighborhood, like fishing not 2 minutes. But we have to make sure we do it like the first hour because we're seeing the legislation is coming back years from now. It doesn't not letting people come park on it. If parking system is working so well, they can park much further away and just take the train hinges. So they like, why would I ever want to park?
Especially when you're passing the like that's a key thing, like people coming from they aren't going to have this
push ahead.
Hi, friends. Grab your seats so we can get to drinks.
Someone needs beer. There's a restaurant where we're going.
All right, friends. Reconvene.
All right, everybody, let's go. Sooner we present, the sooner we can.
Yeah. Sooner we present, sooner we can get beers or non-alcoholic beverages.
So
we don't encourage drinking.
who's gonna go first?
Who wants to go first? Or I can randomly pick a group.
We can go first.
All right. Alrighty.
Right.
Come on up, and I'll give you the microphone.
All right. Let's pay attention, please.
Yes, so we were the team talking about if we had to convince legislative decision makers. So the terms that we came up with were, first of all, discuss why build it in the first place and what the benefits for that politician's constituents might be.
I mean, that looks pretty self-explanatory. You can't convince them to do a project if you're, not telling them what's the point.
Exactly.
That's both Utah and Colorado. It's the same deal.
Yeah. The one that is different between Colorado and Utah is the cost and specifically finances and financing mechanisms.
Yeah, I mean on that, in Colorado, if you're going to do a project, you really have to know how you're going to fund that beforehand because you can't on, tax increase. You have to, and it's not easy to get money. So it's much easier to get something done here if you can identify a very specific funding mechanism beforehand. And in Utah, of course you still should have ideas with money, but as we saw with, Christian earlier in his presentation, they don't necessarily need a very particular funding mechanism.
And then you kind of touched on this a bit, but what are the local, legal, and financial constraints of any given project?
Yeah.
Same.
What are the local regulations? What needs to be done? Everything's different everywhere.
Yes. Going off of that, local versus regional benefits. So this also gets tied into who has the final say on whether or not a project gets done. I think that's an important thing to know in any public project.
Yeah, I mean, here the Front Range really does have most of the power, but that's not necessarily Denver. So if you're doing a Denver project, how does that benefit the rest of the Front Range? In Utah, Salt Lake City and the Wasatch Front, especially Salt Lake City, has relatively much less power at the state. So how does this benefit the rest of the state? And so it's not just this will benefit people, but not necessarily everyone. It's just, it's the city is getting the project. How is this going to help, places maybe where the project isn't happening?
Yeah, so then the last three that we have is, the first big one is if you're talking to a politician, it's really important that you find a reason for urgency, why it is really important that this project gets done in a timely fashion.
Yeah, I mean, that's another one. It's what it says on the tin. It's much easier to kind of talk about a project and especially why a project needs to happen if there's something like a new stadium or the Olympics or any really big event where it's if we can improve our infrastructure ahead of this, it will, significantly benefit that. And something that, needs to happen before we have big thing.
Right. Then it's also important for you to find a person who can champion the project that you are working on.
I mean, especially when you're looking at legislative bodies, it is important to have someone there who can push for your project because you regular people generally don't have as much access to a governing body as members of that governing body. So if you can get someone that, for example, in the state senate or on city council to be really in favor of your project, yeah.
Right. And then the last one that we had is, which is also just a good tactic when talking to anyone, not just politicians, make it personal.
Yeah, I mean, politicians are people, and they all have a particular thing they're interested in.
A really good example that from Utah is that the Senate president really wants Frontrunner to be double-tracked. And if that's, you can tie your project into a politician's particular interest, then you'll give them more reason to be in favor of it. And especially if that politician is someone like a Senate president who has a lot of sway and kind of is a deciding vote in a sense.
So that was a lot of points. So just to wrap up before I'm done, the things that we came up with were why you build the project in the first place, how it benefits a politician's constituents, what are the associated costs and finances and financial mechanisms, what are the local legal and financial constraints, what are the benefits between local and regional areas, who has the final say in a project, and then the last three, find a reason for urgency, find a project champion, and make it personal to that individual.
Oh, can I get the card? Oh. All right, who wants to go group two? Group two? All righty. Yep.
I got this one.
Local residents, we kind of accidentally talked a little bit more about what we would like to see for the trenching for more of our area, but I can massage this into the way for the Rio Grande. The first thing that we really brought up was the people's frustrations with particularly the A-line and the amount of incidents that we have with the lack of grade separation on that. We have a lot of incidences specifically at Quebec Crossing. Once that happens, we have to have the line shut down for a super long time, and that will decrease the amount of frequency we can have. We'll have growing pains for people not wanting to use it because they heard of one incident, and now they think that a train that is reliable 99% of the time has one incident, and then now they won't be able to ride the train again. We also were talking about neighborhoods want to reduce noise that comes with grade crossings. I always talk about how just making a quiet zone doesn't take away the risk. Taking away the noise from a train can increase the amount of strikes that we have. Bringing it to a grade separation really pushes it into a way where we can minimize the risk of people getting impacted by a train itself. Residents don't want to have any of their neighborhoods change. I can argue, especially if you put more bridges for pedestrians specifically to go on top of those trenches, you can have even more land to be walking with because now you don't have the right-of-way separating parts of the city. We also have, decided by RTD, DPTI, and Denver. I honestly forgot which one that was talking about. I probably already hit on that. It also increases reliability. You don't have incidences that will boggle down the system and have to wait for everyone to respond to it. You can also increase frequency whenever you want. You can make headways faster and more reliable because you don't have the crossing gates going down, holding up traffic. You can only really have those gates go up and down so many times before traffic can't get through at all. Needing to talk about the everyday impact of the construction is a big one, especially here at Colfax. This is a big one that we've been talking about for a few years and the impacts of that. Making sure that we as a population understand what it's going to look like and make sure that we minimize the impacts of construction. Make arguments on why it is safer to invest in trenching in the long run so we don't have as many incidences. We can expand the rail much more frequently, and educate what grade separation is. A lot of the public don't even know what grade separation is. They don't even, if you say highway grade crossing, they're not going to know what it is. So having a lot of PSAs to educate the public on what all of this we're talking about is, and to really understand what goes into grade separation and the trenching, the benefits of the trenching and building bridges. Future investments available for higher and more frequent headways. I kind of already talked about that one, but you can, with grade separation, you can have this more reliability. You can put it from 15-minute headways. You can go 5-minute headways if you really can. One I always bring up is the Shikansen is completely grade separated, and it has not had a single incident. And someone in this room knows when it opened, but for very long time, they have not hit anyone. If we had full grade separation, we could have incredible reliability for our trains. That's all I have for that.
Next group. Last but not least.
We'll try to speed run this. I'm Edwin, this is Andrew. We did the technical stakeholders. The main thing, I think you start with the problem. These people understand the technical details. So we start with the problem, we pitch 2 punchy sentences about what the problem is and why it's a problem. And then once we start getting into the actual technical conversation, then we can start answering some questions, where, who, and what. So where, like where's the project happening? What are some of the limits of the project? So maybe this is money, maybe this is technical complexity for configuring with different modes, walking, roads, transit, freight, all that kind of stuff. Who are the stakeholders? So for example, in Burnham Yard, it's going to be like the Broncos, it's going to be RTD, it's going to be the city. In Utah, it's going to be the commuter rail, it's going to be the city, it's going to be the whole state.
UTA, like the county, lots of, maybe other private stakeholders like Smith Entertainment Group, who now owns the Jazz, and they run the arena downtown. So yeah, lots of our stakeholders as well.
Yeah, and then the last one is like the what. So you kind of go back to circle back to like your initial problem that you stated and how, what you proposed and what you talked about and like how you're going to solve that problem. And answer some of those technical questions. Some of the other like similarities and differences between the project here in Denver with Burnham Yards and the Rio Grande project is that some of the differences are that like obviously the scale of the Rio Grande project is way, way larger. It's going across like multiple municipalities. There's the freight, there's the commuter, and some of the other stakeholders.
More technically complex in that it has a freight rail component as well and multiple freight rail customers. So that makes it more complicated than just the fact that still complicated with what you guys have, but it's just more of the light rail. So that's one single stakeholder, which makes it a little more feasible from a technical stakeholder component.
Yeah, and then some of the similarities, like we talked about a little bit about this during the presentation, but these are really old rail yards that the freight companies probably don't want to deal with cleaning up, and both of these projects propose dealing with them.
And they propose dealing with them in the same way too. Like you can grade separate, there's lots of ways to do grade separations. You can do underpasses with roads, overpasses, or you can just trench the train. So that's the biggest similarity. These are both trench projects, obviously. So
that's all we got. Yeah. Thank you.
You wanna?
Yeah. All right, so I think all of us are eager to get some food, maybe a few beers for those of us who drink beers. But we've got even though we have the ledge session now complete, we do have a couple of weeks where our candidates who are running for the RTD board are gathering signatures. So to motivate everyone for why we're doing all of this, why is it that some of us have spent an enormous amount of time in this work is that we are actually making progress. And sometimes it feels like there are seasons where it's harder to see, but just like a couple, just for a second. First thing we did was we got e-bikes legalized on RTD. That was the first thing that GDT did. We supported, and with board allies, we got advertisements removed from RTD screens. We banned the damn ad wraps as well. We put together the most comprehensive revisioning that the public has ever done of RTD's bus system. RTD has actually adopted 2 of these bus routes already, even before the COA, the 32 and the 44, which is huge. And then some of you may remember, right, a couple of years ago, Front Range Passenger Rail was talking about maybe 3 to 5 trains a day. Now they're talking about 8 to 10. I mean, then we've got a few candidates in this room that were a part of this. In 2024, we had a landslide. We got 7 of our 8 candidates onto the RTD board. under the leadership of this new board and a huge work from RTD staff, Tap and Ride was launched. Finally, you don't need to download a stupid app. You can just walk onto a train, tap your card and board. We have made transit so much more accessible for everyone, including tourists. GDT leadership, yours truly, was put on the RTD Accountability Committee by Governor Polis. Also, Director Larson served on the RTD Accountability, put forward by Governor Polis as well. Denver Airport is studying a transit-only alternative to Pena. Finally! And the coup de grace of yet to have 15-minute service on the G line is coming back. And 30-minute peak service on the B line, too. So anyway, we're flexing a little bit right now, but what's really important is all of this work is transforming not just the experiences of people who benefit from these incremental upgrades, but it's restoring faith, I think, that RTD can get better. We have people there who want it to succeed. We have people there who are making changes. We have opportunities as advocates to support them in making these changes. RTD's new leadership, there's a totally different tone. We had them with us tonight, right? That would never have happened 4 years ago. Things are changing, and we have the opportunity to be a part of it. So how can we support this change? Well, the soonest thing that you can do is help gather signatures.
If you're running, please come.
If you're running, please come forward. If you're running for an RTD board seat, come on up. So we, come on up. So you notice these 4 people on the top. These 4 people came out of GDT, but we also have several other allies on the board. There's one who's running for re-election right now. We've got 2 other folks, including an astronaut. You realize there are no photos of you on the internet. Like there's like actually, I was not able to find a photo of you on the internet.
On a photography session that was right now this week.
Okay, all right.
But that is, if you go back, that's a bit more accurate.
Yeah, no, you went to the moon, right?
I mean,
yeah, you went to the moon.
Wonders for you.
So there's a couple of these races where we haven't made an endorsement yet, but I would just say I've been super impressed with what John has shared with us. Bianca is a super impressive person as well, right? Even if the leadership hasn't endorsed, the membership hasn't endorsed, go do signatures for them, right? This is an opportunity for you to help them, people who are passionate about RTD and making RTD better. You can make the next couple of weeks easier for them. And then,
We don't need a video.
We don't need a video of you?
Folks, we have a video for if I wasn't going to make it, but I did. Thank you all for being here. Thanks for being advocates for a better transit system. I'm Michael Farrington. I'm running for RTD District May, which is Commerce City, Brighton, and Thornton. Thank you. RTD District K is really, really out there. It does not have a lot of transit. It is served by exactly 1 stop on the N line and about 3 bus routes. So I'm not going to ask you to come knock doors and collect signatures in District K. Instead, I'm going to ask you to collect signatures and knock doors for the only person who could not make it here today, which is Joe Meyer especially. Joe needs your help the most. He's in Denver, where a lot of you folks either come or often are. There we go, perfect. You will notice my district's this giant one stretching to the end of the earth. Joe's is just this tiny District C, and the fact that it is small means it's a little bit more challenging. There's a lot of folks all the ways down here because it's a great place. Exactly, we're all in District C. Lots of people come to District C for a lot of reasons. People go to District K to hike around Bar Lake or something, I don't know. But it's really easy. When I talk to someone outside a grocery store in District K, they're from District K. They're from North Glen, they're from Thornton, they're from Commerce City. District C is going to be a lot more challenging. Joe is a very, very busy person, hence why he's not here. He is traveling for work. I'm going to ask you, sign up, ask James how to sign up on the Slack, help us out, help volunteer, get these folks on the ballot. We can't win if we're not on the ballot. We know that because the 1 seat we lost last year is because we didn't get somebody on the ballot. That's all I got.
You can't win if you don't run.
You can't win if you don't run. And we're running for you, and we can't win if we don't make the ballot. All right.
So next stop, Terminal Bar. Come talk to these guys and get all their political laundry aired out over drinks. Alrighty.
So those of you who are new, who have never been here, Terminal Bar is that way. You just go down the elevator to the base, you cross the street, 17th is right there. You go under the train tracks or around them, because in Denver we can't go under our train tracks. Union Station, it's the beautiful train station. You can't miss it. Terminal bars right in there. So.
And if you come, I'll tell you my least favorite lawmaker. You can take that piece of juicy information. Gossip about it.
Well, thank you all for coming. We'll see you across the
Thank you.